You're now watching The Wash Daily. Today news, a judge dismisses all claims in a vape-related illness case. During the vape crisis of the end of 2019 and beginning of 2020, when people were getting sick from pneumonia and people weren't really sure what was happening, folks who were getting sick were starting to sue people like the vaporizer manufacturers. Now, a popular vape manufacturer, CCELL, was one of the companies that was sued. Now, the judge said it had nothing to do with them. Their product is totally safe, and that the problems that were happening with the lung injury were related to mostly sketchy vapes that were sourced outside of legal channels. They're black market vapes that turned out they had vitamin E in them in a lot of the cases where people were getting really sick. Now, unfortunately, this wasn't exactly clear what was going on. In Massachusetts, they confiscated, I think, millions of vapes, millions of dollars worth of vapes anyway. And all those products had to be destroyed because they kept them in the storage for so long. There was a question to whether those were contaminated as a result of all that sitting around. Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker was behind a plan to confiscate all the vapes and shut down all the vape shops overnight without any real warning. And because they held on to the products for so long, there was a question of whether their products were still safe, that potentially heavy metals may have been able to leach into the product because it was sitting for so long on shelves, not properly stored. Well, those companies had to eat the cost of those vapes that were confiscated illegally, and there's probably going to be more lawsuits in Massachusetts around that piece. Also in news, vapes are now gaining more popularity, but not from the folks in the black market. It seems like the people who are going back to using the vape cartridges are getting them from legal shops and from trusted, reliable sources after such trouble they had over in 2019 into 2020 with all the vape-related illnesses. People are pretty careful about where they get their vapes. The other thing is, the vapes were really helpful for people who had jobs and had to be around people that weren't comfortable with their cannabis use. So now that folks are working from home a lot more, there's a lot less need for hiding their cannabis use. A lot of people just aren't hiding it anymore. They just smoke it, and that's that. And they smoke it at home while they're working. And a lot of people are just using it more often, and they're not using the vapes. The vapes were a more discreet way to use cannabis, and people are being less discreet as stigma is reduced and as legal cannabis is growing in popularity, its status as an essential item, and its role for helping economies heal from the COVID-19 crisis. Also in news, Pennsylvania says they're going to grow much better weed than New Jersey. And so if they legalize weed in New Jersey, they better grow it in Pennsylvania too, because they know what's going to happen. The folks in Pennsylvania are going to go over to New Jersey to get the New Jersey weed, and there's no reason for those folks to be getting New Jersey weed where they can get very good weed here in Pennsylvania, is what Pennsylvania lawmakers are saying. Now, Tom Wolf over in Pennsylvania, he's pretty much demanding legal cannabis. Phil Murphy over in New Jersey, he's very pro-cannabis, and they're really looking for cannabis to become part of their plan towards rebuilding their state's economy and infrastructure and meeting their budgetary goals. Now, Pennsylvania is saying, hey, well, we want some of this action too, because if they make cannabis legal in New Jersey, Pennsylvanians are going to be putting their money into New Jersey cannabis, and they don't want that at all. They say, you know, we got to keep our money here in Pennsylvania. Let's stop playing around and make cannabis legal. Thanks for watching The Wash Daily.